Welcome back to Drunk on Riding, brought to you in part through the patronage of Ariya and Norinth. Today we're having a bit of a special episode. I know I call them all fairly special, but they are pretty special. But today, this one is extra special because we have a couple of guests. Phil Verrecchio III and Ryan Dinger, aka Jetsetting. They just dropped their new debut EP, The Spaceman, an ethereal groove of a concept album. I've been listening to it pretty nonstop. Kim actually told me to stop at one point because I had listened to it too much. She just wanted to toss in a little bit of variety there. I don't care. I keep listening to it when she's not paying attention.
Does she like the album?
She does. She does. It's just I listen to it too much. You know, it's funny. So in the same week, I got the new Marilyn Manson album, the Weeknd album, the new Gorillaz album, and your guys' album. And all those albums, I listen to your album the most.
Wow. That's really
yeah.
That's kind, especially Gorillaz in the Weeknd.
You know, I don't know what it is. I'm really digging it.
Well, that was I sort of have a ranking in my head of like the nicest things that people have told us about the albums, and that's definitely like, top three. Is your wife was like, can you please listen to something else? That one ranks very highly for me, so a very high compliment. And man, like that new Gorillaz album is awesome. So
that's great. Yeah.
To be seen as like outperforming the Gorillaz in the Weeknd, it's like, yeah, you're nuts to me. But thank you so much.
Yeah.
What can I say? That notion.
If you enjoy this episode, and we're going to dive deep into this album, including how Jetsetting got together, how they wrote The Spaceman, their favorite songs on the album, why they have so many action figures, and a whole lot of Caligula. Yeah. So please be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment below, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, and head on over to drunkonriding.com and sign up for more episodes more often. Now, gentlemen, how did you guys hook up? How did this whole collaboration come to be?
Well, Ryan and I have played in different bands for many years. I'd say probably the entirety that Ryan and I have been friends, probably about 15 years. And always played in different bands. And, as our friendship grew over the years, we did a few projects together that weren't long lasting. And we always talked about, like, the closer we got, that there was some chemistry between us and that we wanted to do a project. And it just never came to fruition. And I think the seeds of it were placed like in the early 2010s. And then I would say 2018, 17, 18 is when we really got serious about it. And
really end of 2016, we started playing.
Was it that early?
End of 2016, yeah. We started playing together end of 2016, and I had the idea at that point, like, okay, I'm going to get a computer and I'm gonna create a home studio, and we'll start recording music. But that didn't happen until beginning of 2017 is when I got the studio set up. But we started playing music. It's funny, I was going back through demos and stuff, like listening to, like, just back on this journey, and we at one point were just like playing live instruments in a room, recording with our phones, just like recording song ideas. So yeah, I mean, 2016 was when we sort of started playing in what would eventually become Jetsetting.
So this really goes back. I mean, this has been a long time in the making here.
Yes, yeah. We, as Phil said, we definitely played in bands together before, and things had just sort of fizzled out. Some of them we released stuff, some of them never even got to that point. But it's been something we've been talking about for a long time, wanting to do a project together, because Phil will tell you, we've always had a good chemistry musically.
Ryan and I played more in like the screamo, metal, rock kind of vein.
Yeah.
And was getting to a point where I was just kind of burned out and doing that kind of music, and it had given me some vocal cord issues, and I wasn't really singing for a while because I really couldn't. And I just, as I got older, I was like, this doesn't fit me anymore. This style, it was real taxing on singing, and I felt like it wasn't playing to my strengths as a vocalist, and really as an instrumentalist too. And so we we were talking for a while, and then it just kind of slowly started. Like I went back and listened to those demos, and it's crazy because you can hear the kind of rock, like, you know,
aesthetic.
Those demos almost have like a bluesy sound to them in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's funny, right? So because we have such a rock background, I think a lot of early playing, we were really trying to figure out what we should be, and like what Phil was saying before about like how that music, he felt like the stuff we were playing before, the heavier stuff, the faster stuff, wasn't really like suiting his vocals anymore. I think a lot of what we were doing early on was figuring out like what we could use from our rock background in something that we wanted to be new. Like I definitely felt like we knew we wanted to get away from playing what we had always played before, definitely, but we didn't really know quite like what our sound should be. So like I think the first year, 2 years of us playing together, you know, starting again back in 2016, from like 2016 to 2018, a lot of that was sort of just, we probably wrote 8 or 9 songs that will never see the light of day. They were just like sort of figuring out what our strengths were, what we could apply from like what we had done before to something, you know, this new project that we had. So, and like blues is definitely a background that I have. Like I'm, you know, super proficient in blues guitar and stuff.
Let me just throw that out there. I'm super proficient in that.
Well, I do play guitar. I mean, I am though. I mean, it's one of my strengths as a guitarist, I would say. And like, you know, we have a rock background, so it's sort of like figuring out how we could use that. But like, we both always loved funk and like pop music and dancey stuff. Like we definitely wanted to make something that was more just like fun and upbeat too. So like sort of figuring out how we could use funk in a way to like make people, or make music that makes people dance.
It was also trying to find like my strength and confidence as a vocalist again.
Definitely. Yeah.
You know, and that was something that Warren, that was something that Ryan like always put to the forefront, which made me feel even more comfortable in trying to do new things. Because towards the end of me playing in a lot of the harder stuff, it really wasn't a match anymore. Like my vocals to what, you know, was expected, as it were. And I think that like you definitely hear that in the demos, where it's just like I listen to them and I hear like the wavering in my voice, and I hear the, you know, me not doing the things that I'm doing now to preserve my voice. And you know, it's almost like, for me personally, it was a growth as a musician and growth as a vocalist, just to feel healthy singing again. And I think that's why we got to the point that we're at now with the Spaceman, and subsequently with, you know, new music that we're working on.
Don't give too much away now.
Oh no, I'm not. No. I'm just saying it's just, for me, it's a lot of fun, and it's so much more comfortable. You know, even though Ryan and I are perfectionists with all this, and we're really on each other. If something doesn't sound right, we'll change it. Like we don't pull any punches, but it's still fun, and it's still productive, and it's like, it makes me want to keep doing it. Like this is the best thing we've ever done, and I'm like, you know, let's do it, let's go.
You Phil, and Ryan, you started to go into this. What was your process here in developing this album?
A lot of what this album was we would spend, you know, a Friday night, all day Saturday, half of a day Sunday, sort of just like working on ideas. And then, so a lot of that would be like the writing, you know, you would like, you know, write a song or write the idea for a song, sort of lay down make the demo or whatever. And then it would be sometimes years of, you know, and this, like some of the songs that we wrote that ended up on the album, we started writing in 2018. So some of them are honestly like 2 years in the making. So it would be like The Program is a great example. The Program was a song that we wrote probably over the course of like 2 days, really. Like I had the idea of the song, had the vocal.
Wow.
But then it was like a year of like figuring out what the right instrumentation should be. Like I remember the chorus in that song took us for like, there must have been 10 different versions of that chorus with different instrumentation and stuff. And not Phil's vocals. Like we knew early on, like your vocal melody for that song was solid, but there was like 10 different, like, oh, let's try this. Like it's not working in this way. Let's add these synths. Let me try this guitar part. I must have written 6 or 7 different guitar parts for it. Like really just like trying to get things to work to a point where we're just like, this is exactly what we had in mind. So it's a lot of like quick bursts followed by this like long sludge, like, through 5 yards of fecal matter at like in Shang.
I think what I'm happy about too, to roll off of your point, Ryan, was when we were close to the home stretch, Warning Signs was the last song on the album. We were having a lot of difficulty with it, a lot of difficulty in getting it just right. And and I remember having so many talks with Ryan, and it's like, we're so close, but we have to stick with what has gotten us to this point where like we knew it was the last song, it was the last thing that we had to work on, and we were so close. And there were many times where it was just like, what, it's close enough, let's just do it, whatever. And then that whole thing came up with past recordings and past bands and stuff like that, where it was like you never went through a first draft. It was always you wrote your part, and as long as you were in the key, and as long as it didn't sound too off, you recorded it, and that was it. That was the process. And a lot of like bandmates and mutual friends and mutual bandmates would always get on Ryan about being like, you're the taskmaster, you always want to change these things, just like keep it to what it is. And and honestly, like that was one thing in the few times that Ryan and I played together that never really bothered me. It bothered everybody else. I never really, Ryan and I never clashed as much as he has with like our other friends or other musicians and whatnot. Like, I think it's a good clash. I like it. I've always said that, the yin and the yang, the fire and the ice, as Ryan has said before. It's just like,
passionate.
That?
I said I'm passionate for sure. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm more kind of laid back and but our we feed off of each other. It's a good dynamic, and we both of us can't be hotheads because obviously nothing will get done. So like
I'm not a hothead. I just know what I want. I just know what I want, I think.
I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean it like hothead in a sense of what you like, what you want, and and it's like you want to get it there no matter what. And some people don't like that, but like I think that's the difference too, and that's why this stuff is so cohesive, because there's a part of me that I can see where Ryan wants to take it, even if I can't explain it to him, and even if I can't get there like musically with our respective instruments, but I can see where he wants to go, and I'm like, okay, you know what? Yeah, let's do it. And then in the same vein, Ryan does that with me too, where it's like, hey, I hear this, I think this is where it should go, and I'll play it, or I'll mouth it, or I'll sing it, or whatever, and it's like, yeah, that's where those are the notes. Let's do it.
There's a lot of like to your point, Phil, like a lot of me in the studio will be like, all right, you should do this. Like, and like Phil will literally sit there and be like, all right, sing it again, and count the syllables so that he can like figure out, okay, what lyrics do I need to write to this like melody idea so yeah, to your point, Phil, there's a lot of like, because like the lyrics aren't there yet, that's always the hardest, like not necessarily the hardest part, but that always takes time. You always have to sit. But I hear the melodies like so quickly, so it's like.
Yeah. I heard the demo for the early demo for Not What I Wanted had a completely different chorus on it.
You ask, do you miss me? Well, answer me. Why do we pretend that this story shouldn't end? I'd rather just delete your lines like words you never said.
That was definitely a period of me, I think, saying like, it's cool, but I feel like you can do better, What's so funny about that hook to me is I remember we laid it down and we had it for a while, and Phil went away, and we were listening to the demo and stuff and sort of formulating our ideas, and we came back, and I was like, it needs to be something different on the hook. So we were sitting and just like going back over like what we could do, and as we were formulating the idea, I said, Phil, you should do something like this. Like, this shouldn't be the lyric, but it should be like something like, but I'm glad that I saved my receipt. And I said that completely 100% like, this should not be the lyric, but this is what you should try to do, this idea. And Phil was like, no, you know what? That's the lyric. I like that.
I'm glad that I saved my receipt.
So it was a fight to get here, but you delivered a 7-track EP, The Spaceman, just released November 13th. You described it as a concept album. What made you want to do a concept? I know you said that there's a story here, and I think I know the story. I want to hear it from you guys first, just to verify that I have it right.
You know what? It happened, Warren. It happened completely by accident, and how it came to be is, so you listen to Questions and Answers, which would become Stranded in the Space Between.
If I could get it right now, baby, I could make good on the plan, and you could let that hair flow, 'cause you're wild, and I like that you can.
I remember listening to it, and at first it was a whole step higher than it is now. Mm-hmm. And so it was at the very top of my range with singing, and it was hard to sing the melody that I had, but I knew that a lot of the melodies, especially the ones in the verses, were the ones that I wanted to use, and Ryan was definitely on board with it too. But the more I listened to the song, the more I said to myself, this, and then eventually to Ryan, I was like, this song does not sound like any song that we've written before. It's got a completely different structure. It's got a completely different vibe. It had this like very ethereal, spacey, like out there, really conceptual kind of sound. And I'm like, this deserves different lyrics. It deserves bigger lyrics. I remember trying to think about how I wanted to rework the lyrics, and I was reading a book on Caligula.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a huge history buff, and so it says how Caligula only ruled Rome for 4 years, from 37 CE to 41 CE, and in those first 2 years was actually a very, very accomplished ruler. But something happened halfway through his reign that we all remember him now as. Like, that name is very synonymous with greed and power and hubris and just absolute excess and just violence and all this really negative stuff. And I thought about it, and I said, you know what? Humans have been making that mistake since documented history, and probably before that. Millions and millions of people have gone down that road of greed and hubris, and have just come out dirty on the other side. And I thought about that, and I was like, maybe I could write something that speaks to that. And I thought of that, and I was like, what better way to do it than to write something about space? I was like, there's so much space in space, and there's so much
there is a lot of space.
Yeah, like
I want to just let me pitch you what I think is the story here.
Okay,
and tell me how off base I am. So, starts off, spaceman stranded in space. So transmission dies, and we assume that's the end. And we see from there. I picture it as like his head, like how the head explodes sometimes. You see into their thoughts, like you
Yes.
zoom into the thoughts. This is how I picture the album in my head. You zoom into the thoughts, and it's now he or she got dumped, I think, or got their heart broken.
Mm-hmm.
Go and sign up for this program that seems to coerce them and gets them into outer space on this one-way ticket kind of thing. Am I close?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty spot on, I would say. Yeah, so it's sort of going back to this person getting their heart broken and being like, you know what, like, F this, I'm just like done with everything, and emotionally vulnerable, I think is important, but also just like driven by emotion, sees this opportunity to sort of get taken in by this civilian space program is how we think of it. Sometimes I think SpaceX comes up a lot, sort of that type of idea, like not too far-fetched, gets pulled into this program and gets built up into like you'll get famous and you'll get rich, all these things that when you're heartbroken you want to have happen to you, right? Like you want to show the other person what a mistake they made by becoming this awesome, successful, great thing. And yeah, you sort of get taken advantage of from there, sent into space on a mission. It's not clear whether they know that they're supposed to come back or not. Something bad happens and they wind up adrift in space. And I think definitely meant to be open to interpretation, wouldn't you say, Phil?
Oh yeah, I think, I mean, the lyrics were written, with that openness in mind, where you're not necessarily sure what the heartbreak was, but you can interpret it a few different ways. And then the same with, who has, who's greedy and who wants the power and who has the hubris. It kind of goes back and forth between the spaceman and the program. It's like they both have differing degrees of the same thing. That's why they work together. That's why the spaceman gets brought in from the program, and like that's like in the beginning of Warning Signs, where it says, "I am the one.
I am the one, the universal son." I'm pretty sure that's what they told you. Well, they told us to.
That's like, the crew being in the ship.
Or is it the crew? Who knows? Maybe it's ghosts of the program past. I mean,
or maybe it's just voices in his head or whatever. Yeah, like, and that's the thing. It's like whatever I use the term crew, in air quotes. But it's basically, whatever you want.
I'm fascinated right now. I don't know if you can tell. I'm just like so engrossed in this.
It's not, thank you. It's like whatever you want the crew to be. It's like, I thought I was the one. I thought it revolved around me. Like everything was what I wanted it to be. And what, and I can show you, like, yeah, you want to do this to me, or you want to do me wrong. Well, now, like, look at me. But then it's like, but they told other people this too. And is the spaceman saying that to are other people saying that to him directly? Or is that thought coming into his mind of being like, wait, they said this to other people. Like, I'm just a cog in the machine. It's too late though. Like I said earlier, like with not being able to go back, you can't turn back. It's too late. You're too far into it. It's too deep. And so it's kind of like that like age old question, like, if you had hindsight, would you be able to, to do the things differently? And obviously in this instance, you can't, because it's already done.
And this may be something that maybe most listeners don't know, is that the first song is basically the last song in the story of the album, and it's cyclical. Makes you almost like hope that something will happen a little bit differently next time. Yeah,
definitely a story that it's as old as time. Like Phil said, he is reading about Caligula and stuff when we sort of got started on it. So I think it definitely.
And that's 2,000 years ago. Like, so many people focus on the violence of Caligula, but they don't focus on the story of it. And that's what like, got the wheels going in my head, where like, I want to look past the violence and to say, okay, what got him to that point? How did he go from being a successful ruler to just a violent crazy sociopath. Like, how do you get to that point?
Do we
You know
know
what
the
I mean?
answer to that? I have to know.
Yeah.
We don't have the answer to that, right? It's vague, just like the album is, right? It's like that.
Yeah,
You're kind of basing this whole thing. So the whole album basically is about Caligula. That's what you're telling me, right?
it's not, well,
yeah, no, I wouldn't say that, but
I think it's just the like how Ryan said, it's the story as old as time. You know, like the story of a, you know, maybe a person at first inherently good, getting into something that, you know, at some point turns them, and, you know, and then they get power hungry. They let that be the driving force instead of what got them there in the first place. And then it's, you know, and then that starts to just disintegrate the mind and the way of thinking. And you know, it's not directly about Caligula, but it's definitely about the story of the millions of not just rulers and emperors and, you know, people that you know are documented, but just people in general, in you know, in the workplaces and in politics and in life. Just this, you know, this like human error of nature. You know, it's just like it just keeps it's like a snowball effect. It just has been going on for millennia, as it were.
So I think, you know, we had written Stranded in the Space Between, and we knew we liked it a lot. And then we had also Not What I Wanted, and we had those two songs. And from there, like, Phil had the idea to do a concept album. And we sort of crafted the story from those two pieces. And so I think, I mean, it kind of happened accidentally because we knew we wanted to open the album with the beeps.
Just side note on the beeps real quick, because I really geeked out and I was like, is this Morse code? Is there a message? I went up and I looked. I was like, is this one of the letters? I looked at the little Morse code diagram and I was like, I think it might be a B. What are all these B's for?
Well, that is the, like, that's the amazing thing about, you know, how it's structured, because that's the way you took it. You know what I mean? Like, there's so, like, that's what I wanted, an open end. Like, yes, that's what I want to hear.
I think we definitely wrote something where we wanted people to be able to make their own interpretations about it.
Oh yeah.
And like the beeps were just kind of like, Phil was like, this should be how the album opens. And I was like, yeah, that's a cool idea, but it's like the last song in the story that we've, and we were like, whatever, like, that's kind of cool. Like, now it adds this new sort of dynamic to the whole thing. So yeah, I mean, I don't know that we could say going in that was the idea.
No,
the one thing I will say is, like, I always wanted to write a concept album, and it's crazy that it sort of happened this way. Like, since I was like seriously 14 years old, I think you feel the same. Like, I've always loved that idea. I think the album as an art form is dying in a lot of ways, and it's kind of makes me sad because, like, you know, Dark Side of the Moon and like so much of the Rush stuff, and like even more recently, like Coheed and Cambria, like bands who did these big concept albums, I always thought it was really dope, and it was something I always wanted to do. And like Phil just sort of stumbled upon it with this, like, with Stranded. He was like, I got this idea for a song and we should do a whole concept album. And I was like, all right, yeah, like, let's do that then. Like,
we had those, like, you know, 5 songs already written with lyrics.
We probably had like 7 songs at that point. And
I undid like 8 months of work with this whole.
No, because initially you said, you were like, well, let's just change the lyrics of these songs we already have. And I was like, no. If we're gonna do this, we have to do it. Like, we have to write the music around the concept.
Hold on. So you came up with the idea of the concept album, and you basically threw away songs? Is that what I'm hearing?
Like, at least 7 songs, I would say.
And this is on top of the computer meltdown story, which I definitely have to hear. I don't understand what happened there, because you sent me 2 demos, Take Me Home and Heartbreaker, which you say were both lost
They
in
were.
this computer meltdown. You mentioned earlier that there were songs that will never see the light of day. I assume those are them. What happened?
So I had mentioned before, I had the goal to get a home recording studio, to be able to make music from home, just do it the way we, take our time with it and not have to worry about studio time and all that stuff. So I bought a computer, brand new, and I had it for, we worked on it for a year. We had probably a lot of stuff on it, a year's worth of work. I remember it was a week before the computer was 1 year old, and this is partially my fault, but also I think anyone out there can sympathize. I had not backed anything up. I knew I needed to figure out how to back things up, but I was like, it's a $1,800 computer. It's less than a year old. Like, I got time to figure out my backup plan. So I remember it was literally a week before it would have been a year old. I was like streaming something with it, and the screen just went blank, and I smelled a like fire, like plastic melting sound. And what happened actually was the computer just like had a complete freak accident. Logic board melted on it, and we lost a year's worth of music. And like some of those songs were like, it was like 6 or 7 songs that were, close to being done, or, were, at least we were serious about. And that
weirdly, it served as some motivation though. You know what I mean? Like,
well, it was like after that happened, I mean, it was like a month after that where I was like low, like very depressed, like walk into the ocean type stuff. But I remember sort of having like you can't let this like derail it type. Like, I was like, I got another computer. Like, what, are you going to stop making music because so there was definitely like, I have to talk myself up. And Phil will tell you, sometimes the pep talk, I'm good at it. Like, I can give it when it's needed. And I had to give one to myself of like, let's get back to this. What's funny about that is like, I feel like the Spaceman may not have happened if that didn't happen, because Stranded, which was the first song that put us on the idea, and Not What I Wanted, which was the other one we had that sort of became what was part of the story of the album, those didn't exist. And we probably would have continued focusing on the songs that we had, but I had like, did what I called zombie songs with a couple of them. Like, I was able to remember how the songs were, and I like recreated them, but they just didn't have the same like pizzazz as before. So we really just started writing new stuff, and those were 2 of the songs that we wrote.
I think it almost changed our sound. Like when once we started writing again after the computer, it was like a sound reset for us.
I think it gave us an opportunity to lean into the things that we knew we wanted to do. Because if you listen to like Heartbreaker, that demo, like that sort of sounds, you could tell like that was one of the last songs we wrote before the meltdown, and that you could tell we were in like what direction we were heading in. So I think it just gave us an opportunity to really like lean into what we thought we were doing well.
She's a heartbreaker, taking your breath away. She can make you weak and lead your eyes astray. But I'm not waiting around to feel that pain anymore. Yeah.
So of what remains now on the album, well, I gotta know, what's your favorite? Personally, my favorite song, Not What I Wanted. I love that song. I just sit there and I jam out to it.
It's tough because, and I've talked to Ryan about this too. I think the amazing thing is that I'll go a couple weeks and I'll say, this is my favorite song. And then a couple of weeks later, I'm like, oh man, you know what? This one's really hit me. Now this one's my favorite song. And I've had that with, I think, just about every song on the album. I mean, even at some points, even the Spaceman,
Don't get me started on the Spaceman. I love that song. I love that song. It's like the bridge of the album. It comes out of nowhere. It's short. It's only like a minute and a half long, and it's just like this breath of fresh air.
That song, really quickly, was basically I was just kind of fiddling around with a few chords on the guitar, and just kind of played it to Ryan, and then Ryan cleaned it up a bit and was like, you know what, we might have something here.
I am the spaceman. I hold the key. So many numbers and lights and colors.
I would say right now, the song that I've been listening to the most, and the one that has been sticking out to me, it had been stranded for a while. I've been on record as to say that's like my baby. I love that song. But I would say right now, Warning Signs is the one that's doing it for me.
Warning signs. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Not bad.
just
It's not a bad choice.
just oh, thank you. No, I think just, that being the end of the album, bringing everything together. You hear the little beeps in here. You get to the realization that, like, he knows there's nothing, or she or whoever. The spaceman knows that there is
The
nothing.
space person.
The space person. Yes, the space person knows there's nothing left. And you get that in that song, to bring back to Stranded with, basically his final transmission. So I don't know. It really, over the past, since the album's come out, I've noticed that I've been listening to that one more, and that could change. That could change in a couple of weeks, and that's what I love about what Ryan and I have created, because that's all that's been happening. But yes, right now, Warning Signs is the one for me.
It's not a bad choice. See, it's funny. I definitely go back and forth too, but and I think Phil would agree, for the duration of sort of making the album and having a chance to sit with them. Well, first of all, I consider them all our babies. Like, I definitely love them all and think that they all serve their purpose well. But
we have 7 children that we love very much.
Yes, very much love. But you always have favorites. The parents tell you they don't have favorites, but they do. Don't let them fool you. But anyway, I've consistently gone back and forth between Not What I Wanted and Home. Actually, I really, really love the feel of Home. Like lyrically, maybe there are other songs that are more crucial to the album and everything, but it sort of feels to me like a song that I've always wanted to write and haven't been able to this point.
Turn on your TV. Look at me, a sight to see. More famous than you could hope to be. Light shine beneath me.
It takes me to a different place. It's still, like, even after living with it for so long and working on it and, like, really, diving into it and being sick of it at times, the same way, like, not sick of it, but, again, like, doing the work on it and everything. It still, like, sort of transports me in a way that maybe the other songs don't. So
I do have to ask a question, because I did notice that neither of you mentioned the program, and yet that was the one that you pretty much teased the album with. You did this cool stop motion video. Were those X-Men figures? Is that what those were? I thought I saw Morph in there. I think Kingpin was in there at one point.
Yes,
I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm going to knock on wood. I'm not going to get the trademarkers up in here. I don't want Marvel to get worried about this thing. But what made you lead off with that song, and what made you do a stop motion video?
Man, well, so I think leading off with that song, that song was coming up a lot as sort of just like the earworm, or like there was like, it just sort of like perked up your ear. And a few people recommended it be the lead single. Phil will tell you, I was kind of like, I don't know, like, should it be the lead single? Like, the program, I definitely have grown to love it for what it is, but there were times where it was my least favorite song on the album.
Wow.
So, but I think people were telling us a lot, like, this should be the song. And Phil, that's been your favorite song at times.
Oh yeah. I think also too, like, hearing it, especially when it came to the point where we were going to, like, release that song as the first one, and having people close to us listen to the album linearly, listen to it linearly, in a linear fashion.
Linearly.
Yes.
In a row. They listen to it in a row.
Chronologically.
Chronologically.
And I think,
there we go.
And I think, chronologically. And I think hearing it from the spaceman going into the program, because that was the whole thing where it's like, you know, the Spaceman's the realization, like, oh my God, I'm here. I did it. This is who I am. I've finally done it. Like all the naysayers and all, I finally did it. And then it's like the program being like, yeah, you did it. You know, and you know, we'll give you everything you need, but you know, there's we have ulterior motives. Like, and so I think once, you know, you hear those two songs together, and then like the story, and then once we started telling more people that, you know, in our circle, you know, that seemed to be the consensus of the song to go with. And then, you know, Ryan and I eventually agreed on it and said, you know, yeah, let's do it. And I will say, when I first when I when I first saw it with Kingpin throwing his arms down, I lost it. I absolutely was in tears. I couldn't. It killed me, man.
So Phil actually wasn't there for a lot of that. Like Phil was only there for the parts that he was in. It was actually Mike Berberach, our dear friend, and me who initially had the idea. Mike, because he had sort of listened in on the album and had been a consultant in many ways. I previewed the album for him. He and I are neighbors. I went over to his house and played it for him like maybe a month before the release, and he was like, we got to do like a big splash with this. We got to do something. And I was like, I love the like, and he said, let's make a music video. And I was like, I love it, but like, I don't think we have time to make a music video. Like, you know, I think we're 6 weeks out at that point. I mean, 6 weeks when you have day jobs and everything is not a lot of time to make a music video during normal circumstances. But with everything happening this year, and he had actually mentioned to me a few years ago this idea of doing an action figure like music video. And he's like, well, why don't we do the action figures? Like we, you know, that could work. And then he was like, and we don't have to do a full song. Like we can do a song preview, you know, we can do a minute of the song or whatever. And I was like, all right, like actually that can kind of work, I think. So just by chance, he happened to be going to visit his parents like the weekend after we had that conversation, where he had up in his attic in his childhood home, like a big bag of action figures. So we sort of like, we're like, all right, we're going to do this. We had a date for the release. I started writing the script. You know, I wrote like a basic script, and then like sort of produced, you know, like set up dates to film and everything.
So this was a serious production. How long did this take you?
I would say it was like 3 days of shooting in total. It was one day.
That's not that bad.
Yeah, it wasn't terrible. It was one day with Phil. Like we knew Phil was coming up at his first, you know, to do media for the
Phil
album.
Has the best parts too. I mean,
so
just...
yeah, yeah, he's great. He's great. But he did that, and then we did all the action figure stuff after the fact. So he never saw it until we sent him the final thing, and it was like, how did we have it? I mean, I think the idea, like the program, sort of lent itself to telling a story, you know. So it was like kind of easy actually to like sort of figure out like, okay, we can sort of just like do the story of him getting indoctrinated into this program, and like I sort of initially wrote like a pie in the sky script where I had like, you know, a lot of crazy editing and stuff, and we sort of pared it down to like what we felt like we were actually able to do. And yeah, it was like just 4 adults in their 30s in my living room playing with action figures.
It sounds like Mike just wanted a reason to play with the action figures. It really does.
Well, I mean, he definitely deserves credit for the idea of using them, and he directed also, and like he did, you know, he definitely did a great job directing and sort of like taking my big ideas and like executing them in a way that was actually possible. You know, I would say it's actually kind of crazy how close it came to what I was imagining.
I just want to make sure, because I feel like I'm reading between the lines here, that there's no full version of this video coming. You're gonna
no, I don't think so. I mean, we kind of told the whole story in the minute 30. You know.
Why did I set up this interview?
You're not the first person to say that, actually. Someone was like, I can't wait to see the whole video. And I was like, I mean, I think the video is pretty fulfilling for a minute and a half.
The video is great. It just, I want more of it now, you know?
We've already had conversations about how can we do more videos like this, for sure. That's now definitely a video format going forward, I would say.
So the album's now been out for about 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
What are you thinking about it? Is it meeting up to your expectations?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're a new band still, so I think we're still, we're obviously not huge by any means, but I think more than anything, what's been great has been the response from people who we actually know, people in our lives. Hearing from friends and family about, how much they're enjoying it. What you said, Warren, about your wife saying, like, can you stop listening to it? Like, that stuff more than anything has made it all worthwhile, I think. Hearing from friends and family who, like, are impressed and proud of us, and who are saying incredibly nice things. Like, they're definitely building us up, I think, a little too much, to be honest. Like, but yeah.
It's gonna sound kind of corny, but I've always said, if like with writing music, if if I just had one person come up to me and say, hey, you know what, like, this song or this album that you wrote was great, it made me feel great, it inspired me to do something, or like I just, I really enjoyed it, or it spoke to me, or whatever the case, then I would feel, fulfilled in writing, because it's like, to be able to have that effect, or to be able to move somebody through music is like, I mean, it's awesome. I mean, I know how I feel when I'm moved by something musical, and I was like, what better honor than to be able to take a feeling that's so incredible and to share that with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, just hearing, so many people, even coworkers of mine that I don't really know all that well, that have listened and are just like, this is incredible. And I'm like, I don't know what to say. I'm like, I get embarrassed, I get red in the face. Thankfully I got my mask on at work, so like nobody could really say it. But it's I don't know, it's a very rewarding and like humbling experience. I'm really happy. It's just just more fuel to keep going and keep creating, and keep putting out awesome stuff. It's great. I love it.
We talk, when we were making the album, of course, we would talk about, like, oh man, if this blows up, like, you always have the, like, pie in the sky, like, if we get famous. I think the thing that I kept saying to Phil over and over was, like, if our friends and family enjoy it, and, like, people tell us they like it, like, that's enough to me, like, and we have fun making it. So it's like,
oh yeah,
the audience is definitely growing. Like, I think we would both say we've been pleased with the response so far.
Absolutely.
We're definitely adding fans every day, it seems like. But I think more than anything, like, yeah, just having people in our lives who have really enjoyed it has been, like, it's been awesome for sure.
So what comes next now? I'm sitting here specifically asking you for more. I'm telling you, like, I want more. Give me the more. What are the plans for the future? What does Jetsetting do now?
We're writing right now. We've been slowed down a little bit by the pandemic, of course, because we're not able to see each other in person as much, and that there's nothing quite like the energy of being in the same room writing with someone. But we've been trading audio files back and forth. We've got now like, I would say three or four songs that we want to put out on a release first half of 2021. So we're definitely planning to start, like, keep producing stuff and putting it out fairly consistently. I would love to do a full length at some point, but I think more than anything, like, we feel like we're gaining momentum right now. So
just keep the ball rolling.
Keep putting out little releases as we can.
Now, do you follow up on the Spaceman? Does the Spaceman return? Is the Spaceman floating through space? Is going to get picked up, or he or she going to get picked up? The space person, we figured out, right? Are they going to get picked up by an alien? Are they? Is that the end of their story, and everything moving forward is a different concept, or maybe no concept at all, and maybe just their own standalone thing?
I would say currently there's no new news or horizons for the Spaceman. Obviously it ends open-ended with the transmission ending, and not knowing exactly what happens to the Spaceman, but having a good idea. It's almost like the end of The Wrestler when he jumps off the top rope and the screen goes black. You know what I mean? Like, and you're
what
just
a comparison! Like, I love it.
And you're just like, maybe he died, but maybe he didn't, and maybe that would, but you don't really know. So I would say for now, no. that doesn't necessarily mean there won't be. I don't really know if there's any kind of, I don't think as of right now there's any concept for the little LP we plan to put out next year. I think there's definitely some, like, similarities in topics with songs, but I think it's more, I don't know, I'm excited. I think the next round of songs are going to be like super electronic and dancey, so I'm really pumped.
Yeah, for sure. And they have a theme. I wouldn't say, I don't know about revisiting the Spaceman, because I think one of the things that like kind of amazes us that we're able to do, it's a very enclosed story. It sort of works with a beginning and end. So like I think it would have to be a prequel, if anything. Like I don't know that we could, like, the ending is sort of the ending to me. But I will say, to Phil's point, I do think the next album has a theme, and it is space story-ish. So I feel like including elements of that going forward could be, and like certainly it'll be vague enough that you could imagine the spaceman in these environments or whatever. So we had said before we leave it open to interpretation, and I think if you want to impose the spaceman on future things, feel free. And
I think I will.
Yeah,
I will 100%. Just like, oh, this is the spaceman's journey.
He's an empathetic character for sure. Yeah. We had a friend actually who was just like, you know what, screw all whatever else you release. Like, this is the album clearly, and I don't need to hear anything else. So, which is very nice, but also like we're gonna release more stuff. So.
I think I don't know. It's weird. Like in some of the people I've talked to that have talked to me about the album, it's like they vibe with the spaceman. I think it's the humility of the character, and coming full circle and just being like, I thought this is what I wanted. Not what he wanted.
Well, I would say not. I mean, he gets the humility, but a lot of it is ego. There's
a lot of it ego. Yeah, it's basically like, again, falling prey to hubris and not seeing it until it's too late, and then you finally see it, which is the Stranded story, which is the his realization of like, I can't come back. Like I've taken it too far, and I can't get the things that I lost back because I already lost them. There's, and so that's the whole, stranded in the space between. He's stranded, in the space between. I don't know.
Great,
All
great
right.
info. Good stuff.
So yeah, where can everybody follow along with Jetsetting?
Well, first of all, I need to say this is a YouTube show. You guys are watching this on YouTube. We do have a YouTube that we are trying to build. It is at Jetsetting Music. Go subscribe to us right now. We're sharing stuff there also. And then Instagram. That's our only other social media. We're on Instagram at Jetsetting Music. And we're streaming The Spaceman wherever you listen to music. There's like 120 platforms. So
how is there space for 120 platforms today? Like, it's just
that's what they told me. So like different countries, like Spotify isn't in every country. Like China has their own streaming. Like I learned that recently that we're streaming in China.
That's cool.
That's pretty wild.
Like,
that's pretty cool.
We made it through. We got through. So
we made it through the wall right into China. That's awesome.
But
congrats, guys.
Yes, thank you very much. Honestly, just listen to the music. Like that's why we're doing it. So like you go listen, find us Jetsetting, wherever music is streaming. I think more than anything, that's the thing that's important to us. But follow us on Instagram too. Like we would definitely want to look good. You want to have big audiences in other places. So
well, Phil, Ryan, I just want to say thank you for joining me today for this interview. I learned a lot. I'm excited about this episode, and I definitely want to go back and just listen to the album right now after talking about it for so long, and I think I'm probably going to do that.
You're not going to get in trouble for listening to it again now, are you?
I got the headphones. Maybe I'll sit downstairs for a little bit. We'll figure it out.
I love it. Thank you so much for having us on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I want to say thank you to all of you out there watching. Thank you for watching this episode, especially this far in. Like, what are you doing? I mean, this is fantastic. Thank you. Don't get me wrong. But yes, if you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to leave a comment below. Please share it out with your friends. Please subscribe to the channel. And please head on over to drunkonriding.com and check out all the rest of the videos I have up there to offer. You get plenty more videos, plenty more often. And just as always, until next time, cheers. Keep on riding.